Welcome to the Nordic Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farrant, owner of the company Horns of Odin, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Matthias Nordvik.
Hello, everybody. We are talking about Midgardsblot and our experiences there. So we don't have any guests. We will just be rambling, the two of us. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's just going to be me and you hanging out and talking about all the cool things we've been up to this last week.
Yes.
Which it was a fun week.
It was a fun week.
I mean, we've got tons of content from the last week, so I think people hopefully aren't going to get too sick of us talking about Midgardsblot, but equally it's an opportunity where so many guests we have on here are all in one place where we can really go to work and make content for everybody.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, hopefully everyone's not going to be too sick of it. But if you are, then buy a ticket and get there next year, I guess.
Yeah. And don't listen to the podcast, I guess.
Hey, shh. Okay, Matthias, this is our first episode in like 6 weeks. You can't start with don't listen to the podcast.
That's the opposite. That is a little awkward.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's a good place to start. I guess it's no surprise to anybody who listens to the podcast. We've had a few weeks off, and not to get too deep, too heavy. Obviously, it was due to a personal tragedy on my side, something I'm not going to go into details of. But I mentioned to you kind of a week or so after everything happened that I wanted to try and use our platform to maybe speak to somebody listening. Maybe us two idiots having a conversation might reach out to somebody and maybe make them think twice about certain decisions. I know, speaking to you, we've both been affected by suicide, and it's a topic that maybe not everybody talks about. Particularly, I guess, from being in the position of being the person left kind of after. Which is obviously one that maybe not everybody thinks about. But no, I guess the one thing I wanted to say was that if anybody ever gets in the position where they consider that as the only option they have left, please just speak to somebody. And it could be anybody. It could be somebody you know, somebody you don't know. There's phone numbers you can ring. I mean, hell, you can fucking drop me and Matthias an email or a message and we'll respond. I think it's at least take that option to speak, because whilst you're in that mindset, in that zone, you think that nobody cares. There's nobody will be bothered if you're not here. And that could never be more wrong. You know, seeing kind of the aftermath now of this situation, of somebody who didn't think that people would care and they would be better without, that it's seeing the upset and the destruction that it leaves across the board for everyone. You know, people will be hurt, people will feel sad, and it will completely drastically change other people's lives forever. And there's no going back from that. So yeah, if there's one message from it, it is just take that time to talk and think about it. Speak to people around you, because I guess you can't take it back. Once it's done, it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the situation I experienced was with a friend who took their life. And what I saw was a whole community of people, all of their friends in this pretty big broad group of people in Denver and the general area around. Right, they were all affected by it. They were all so sad to have lost this person, and they were all thinking, what could we have done differently? Mm-hmm. And that's also one of the important things, right? Because if you're in that space where you're thinking, I don't matter to anybody, and you instead of making that choice of committing suicide, reach out to somebody in your group, whomever it is, the one that seems most accessible to you, for whatever reason. Just do it, because they will tell you exactly that they will be affected by this, and they will lose you as a person.
I think that's almost the tragic irony behind it, is that if they could see how much it affects people after, it would probably affect the decision to do what they do, because they would see how much it hurts people. That's been the surprising thing for me. Is obviously I was close to this person, so I'm going to have natural guilt and kind of like, what could I have done different? Should I have done things different? But even fringe people, like just my friends on the outside, having that guilt and being like, I wish I'd done something. I wish I'd reached, and the guilt just like that was the kind of the one thing that shocked me the most, was how much it spread, kind of as like almost like a virus to everybody that had any contact of having this guilt. And it's really sad to see, and it all stems from kind of this quick thing that happens. And it's,
but I think it's also, it's a wake up call to all of us who are on the fringe of a social sphere, that with this particular person who would make that choice in the center, right? Like, it also comes down to all of us to take a little bit of responsibility to actually tell the people that we care about, even if it's peripheral, but still care about, that we actually do care about them, and they are people that we like to see in our lives in different situations, however that may be, and even if it's not that often, the person that I knew who took their life used to work at a certain bar, brewery that I would go to a lot, and still to this day, I walk in there and kind of expect to meet them, and because they're just part of the establishment there, and so it's like it. Even though I wasn't that close to this person, I knew them well enough, and just sort of expected that person would still be there.
Yeah, that's certainly a thing. And like I say, we're not going to dwell on it too long, but I think it is an important message to just also just be kind to people, because you have no idea what's going on in people's lives and where they're at. The person that I lost, nobody on the outside would ever have expected this to be the outcome. And that just shows how well people that suffer from depression sometimes like hide these things, that they can just bury it and function completely normally to everybody else, but inside it's there. So yeah, like I guess you don't know. So just be kind to people. Tell people that you love them. And should we talk about Midgardsblot?
Yeah, just one little detail. If you're listening to this and wondering, what kind of hotlines and such can I call for help on the subject of suicide, we will put hotlines and contact information to suicide prevention for the UK and the US in the show notes here.
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll definitely do that. And I think, I can't stress enough, just before you take that decision, just speak to somebody. Even if sometimes it's easiest to speak to a stranger, just try it, and then at least you've had that going and you've kind of taken that route, because people do care, and nobody ever wants to kind of be in this position, I guess. So Matthias, we finally met in person
after several years. Yes.
After a few years, there was the final the moment where we met, the
culmination.
We should have got it on film. We slipped up. We should have had someone secretly filming the moment.
The awkward moment.
The awkward moment where I looked at you and goes, shit, you're taller than I expected.
That's like literally, that's what everybody has been saying during Midgardsblot, and everybody meeting me in person for the first time. I think Bob is sitting in on this call. He was here before, I think he said it too. Like, you're taller in person. Like, that was sort of like the refrain for my presence at Midgardsblot.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I knew you were taller than me, but I didn't know you was
I
that
was
tall.
that tall.
I guess. Yeah, it's good for you, I say.
I guess. I mean, I
don't know why.
I never really thought of myself as particularly tall, but I guess I am taller than people expect.
You must just have short man energy when we do the podcast.
Short man energy. That does not sound good.
No, it doesn't. But you did also tell me that you do a lot of the podcast without pants on, which I don't know. Maybe some people listening to this might be a kind of thing that they're into. It might make their day.
I might have been exaggerating.
Oh, no, taking it back now.
No, I guess not. Well, me without pants doing these, and you with a coconut bikini is definitely going to attract a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, Justin just said that I look like Gimli standing next to you, which that's not a good thing. Please, don't say that.
What about Aina? That picture there. You, me, and Aina. What does he look like?
I'm not even particularly short. I'm 5'10". I pretend. I like to say I'm 5'10". So I'm not short. What are you, Matthias? Like 6'2", 6'3"?
6'1" something.
Yeah. But you do like to wear a little Cuban heel in the shoe.
No, I have a pair of boots that has a bit of heel, but
I noticed you more than the first time we met, though. Not trying to say you were.
Hey, it was a heavy. Well, we were supposed to be at a heavy metal bar. Of course, you wear your shit kickers to a heavy metal bar, like so. We, of course, the heavy metal bar turned out to be closed, so we had to go to the hipster bar next to instead. But that worked out too.
It worked out. No, it was good. It was a lot of fun, especially when you ran home, which is maybe the highlight of my entire week.
Somebody filmed that.
There may be a video of you running up the hill, and then Alex from Fire in the Mountains running after you up the hill. That was flying around there that we need to get hold of.
Well, he's like, how the hell can you run that fast in shit kickers?
It was a lot of fun. Okay, do you want to give a quick rundown of what Midgardsblot is? Because again, every episode is somebody's first episode, so some people might not even know what Midgardsblot is.
Yeah. Okay. So Midgardsblot is a heavy metal festival primarily. That's most of the music that's featured there on the stages. But it's also combined with a Viking market, so Viking reenactors having tents and selling all kinds of like Viking period goods. There is also the location where it takes place is by the mounds at Bora in southern Norway, or just a little south of Oslo, near the town of Horten. And there's a little museum center there, and reconstructed Viking hall, and some cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, they're using the reconstructed Viking hall and that little tower and all that stuff as like the backdrop too for the entire event. And aside from that, since they're working with the museum, the museum also invites speakers to come talk on academic subjects that have to do with the Viking Age and Nordic mythology and all that stuff at these Mimia talks. And that was also, the context in which we were there. We had these panel talks after all the speakers had been giving talks. So at 4 p.m. we would sit down, and then we would let the monkeys loose. And I think that went really well.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. So like you said, that's kind of why we were originally there. But we also had a bunch of, because like it's that place where there's so many people who are in this kind of community, especially ones that we've had on the podcast. It's the opportunity where we can meet them in person, talk to them in person, do interviews with them in person. So we've got. We recently just released our Heilung interview, which we need to speak about because that's maybe my highlight of the whole week. So we released our Heilung interview, which is our second most viewed video on YouTube ever after the Alexander Drimmen one, and it's been out for 2 days, which is insane. The amount of views that this video is getting.
The interview I did with Kai back in 2019 and put on my own channel that I had back then on YouTube. It's still there, and I think I haven't even checked, but I think it's in the tens of thousands of views. Like people really want to see the guys from Heilung speak, and obviously, of course, also Einar Selvig from Vadruna is a popular guest. So yeah, so we had an interview with Einar, which was. Again, he's such a fun guy to talk to. He's really kind of open and he has a clear interest in the history as well. It's not just a surface level. He really is, an in-depth interest into what he's creating and the history around it. So they're always fun conversations. Obviously, we got to sit down with Lindy Faye as well, again from Vodruna. Katrina Steinbeck from Kalandra and Vodruna. We were busy. We got our interviews in. We definitely did. We had a very packed schedule. And I, aside from, doing the panels and running around doing interviews with you, I also had 2 talks I was involved with at the Mimir Talks. I gave a talk with Jonas Lorentzen on creating the Nabala concept and the lyrics that he is singing. And then I also gave my own talk on whether or not Vikings tattooed.
That was a lot of fun. And we got to have a sit-down episode with Jonas, Josh. Both of them have been on this podcast numerous times. The 4 of us got to sit and just kind of shoot the shit with each other, which was a lot of fun. And again, we're going to be releasing that as its own episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, let's talk about the Heilung interview.
Yes.
Because this has to be one of my favorite moments, not only of Midgardsblot, maybe of my entire life. Just because it was just such a surreal kind of coming of events, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's Heilung, they have their own camp at Midgardsblot. So this is like an exclusive Heilung camp. And that's because they, aside from being a lot of band members that need to keep track of each other and meet for various kind of meetings and all that stuff during the time where they're at the festival, they also, a lot of them bring family. Because, as I mentioned, there's this whole Viking market aspect to Midgardsblot as well. And those who have been Viking reenactors or grown up with Viking reenactors like myself, we know that Viking markets are very, very much like a sort of like a camping event, family camping event, where it's not just like the market is open in the daytime for guests and tourists and so on, but then there's all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, so to speak, and after hours, right? A lot of socializing, a lot of friendships being made, a lot of old connections happening, and so on. And so that's also kind of the feel of the Heilung camp, where they they have family members and friends with them, and we were so privileged that we got to sit in Maria's mom's tent and do and she did it all cozy for us and put out some little jar of almonds that we could snack on.
That's it. So when you say a camp, it's literally is like an old, what I would imagine to be like an old kind of medieval Viking camp. There's like, the tents around the edge, there's the fire pit in the middle, everybody's walking around in traditional clothes. There's Maria's mum, Chris's mum, kind of popping around. There's the Hari warriors, the different singers. They're very kind of surreal. So Maria invited us down for coffee. I expected it to be a kettle and some snot cups, I guess. And we get there, and there's coffee in a big iron pot that had been brewing for like 20 minutes or whatever. There's the traditional wooden mugs and some plates. It happened to be one of their birthdays, so we got birthday cake whilst we were there.
Yeah, it was not just any kind of birthday cake. It was a Danish apple layer cake, which as a Dane is one of the
it was fucking
most awesome things that I can be treated to.
Anybody that saw me walking around Midgardsblot can tell I'm a boy that likes cake. So I was more than happy. And then, we went away and we came back maybe a couple of hours later to do the interview. And Maria's mum had kindly set her tent up, like you said, for us with some seats, some nice cushions and throws, some kind of candles. It was a very surreal moment to find me, you, Kai, Chris, and Maria sat there doing this very intimate interview. Not something I ever really expected, I don't think.
No. I mean, that's exactly what I would expect from Highland, but that's also, I had the privilege and pleasure of doing that in 2019 with Kai, where we were sitting in a Viking tent too and talking. I just checked up on how many views it's got on YouTube, and it's about 49,000. So that's a considerable amount.
That's a big. It is. There's a lot.
But back then, I was sitting and trying to, concentrate and pretend that I was not getting smoke in my eyes all the time.
I mean, yeah, that is a thing. But it was surprising. I think I said it in the interview. If you haven't watched it, like I say, it's on YouTube. They clearly just aren't a band that jump on the stage and for that hour and a half they're Highland. They live and breathe Highland. That is who they are. It is the very essence of them are. And then when they perform, they are letting you into kind of them and their space and their ritual. It's not just a performance as such.
No, absolutely not. It is a ritual. And it has purpose and meaning to it that goes far beyond just putting on a good show for some music.
And I think my second favorite moment was I left you, Chris, and Kai was left kind of sat chatting, and me and Maria walked around to watch Vardruna because they just started playing, and I had this kind of moment where I was stood with Maria watching Vardruna, and I was like, this is really odd. I feel like not many people are going to get this opportunity to be stood with kind of like one of the main the main people in Highland watching Vardruna. I was like, this is fun. This is a moment I probably should kind of remember.
Are you a little starstruck?
It wasn't necessarily starstruck. I was just kind of appreciative of this odd kind of scenario that kind of just created itself. I think they're too nice to be starstruck.
Yeah, I guess.
They're too nice and sweet and giving of everything. One thing we didn't mention, we also had an interview with Tim Nankara, who may be one of my favorite human beings on the entire planet now.
He's a really awesome guy.
Yeah. So do you want to explain who Tim is? Because I have invited him to join us for a full episode.
Yes, we will have him on for a full episode, but to just give you a couple of details. So Tim Nancaro is a PhD student at the University of Newcastle in Australia, and he works on rituals and Old Norse mythology and the intersection there. And aside from that, he also performs such rituals. Obviously, what he does is that he does his own interpretation of stuff that we can find in the sources. And at Midgardsblot, he did a Odinic self-hanging. Now, this is in the form of body hook suspension. So you get hooks placed in your chest. Yes, meat hooks that go through your skin and your muscle tissue, and then he was pulled upwards and elevated in those hooks, and that was quite a ritual. As Bob said,
it was.
Yes, it was very uplifting.
Oh, good. That's a good joke. I wish I'd have thought of that. Yeah, it was an experience. When we managed to just catch the end of it because it was completely rammed. It was so busy in the guild hall where he did this ritual. And there was a girl who fainted walking out, which was, but it can be a little bit overwhelming, I guess. Seeing somebody first of all have their hooks put through the chest. I think most people have seen this kind of thing maybe on TV, on Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent or Australia's Got Talent, whatever.
I don't think they would put that on America's Got Talent, though.
I'm sure I've seen people have the surgical hooks and do like. Maybe I'm wrong. But obviously it was very much kind of this Odinic type image of him lifted, because I think as well we spoke about in our interview with him that in the story Odin hangs himself and sacrifices himself to himself, but they don't really make it clear like where he's hung from. And I guess the natural thing is you assume the neck, but
Right, yeah. So in this story, he hangs from presumably Yggdrasil, so the world tree. So the implications of this hanging are cosmic, right? Like this isn't just some dude on a tree. You should perceive this as something much grander than that. And in the end of the stanza describing this ritual, what stands us, he reaches downwards and picks up the runes, and yeah, as we were talking about in the interview, scholars over the years have been trying to work out the logics of like, how can he do that? If he's hanging from his neck, how can he reach down and pick up something? And then some scholars have been like, well, he's got to be hanging from his feet, blah, 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 blah. And of course, that's not the point. Talking about, this kind of myth about a ritual in sort of a pragmatic physical sense, it doesn't make much, is not meaningful at all. The point is, of course, that during this ritual, Odin receives this deep cosmic knowledge that presumably the runes represent. And so that's of course what's happening here, and that's how the runes are also retrieved by Odin and then given to humans, so humans can use them for communication with each other and of course with everybody else, non-human entities, so to speak. But but aside from that, one of the things that I think is really important to mention about the ritual that Tim did is that when he came down again after hanging, he began giving runes to people. So he was sort of mirroring that situation of retrieving this deep cosmological knowledge that you can only get from the realm of the dead. And that's the whole point of doing rituals of this kind, rituals that put you, on your physical limits, so to speak, right? They push you to the limit of what your body can handle. And, then you presumably learn something very fundamentally valuable to yourself and also the community that is willing to receive the knowledge that you have gained from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I saw him just before. And we've been chatting kind of all day. We'd done our interview with him, and he was he's a chatty Cathy. He loves he loves the conversation. And a couple of hours before, I bumped into him, and he was like a completely different person. He was almost like in this trance state. He still kind of recognized me and we had like a little conversation, but it was like a different human. He was clearly taking himself into this trance environment where he was getting ready for this ritual.
Yeah, and he'd been fasting as well, so that was part of it as well. To put yourself through these situations where your body is going to the extremes, and these techniques are well known from all cultures across the planet. That by subjecting your body to extreme situations, you enter a ritual space where new things can happen, and you can gain more knowledge about yourself, or new knowledge about yourself. You can gain new knowledge about the world, and all that stuff. So I don't think that there's a religious tradition out there that does not have rituals of that kind. Like you see it also in Christianity, for instance, with monks who are fasting, and back in the medieval period, they would whack each other with horsewhips and all the fun stuff. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, it's that stuff has been relegated to BDSM cellars instead, I guess.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Some people still do that. We were going to talk spirituality as well a little bit, and you took me. I don't really know where I stand spiritual-wise. I don't really know where I stand religion-wise. I think I class myself as an atheist, which basically means I'm happy. I'm very comfortable in kind of just being like, I don't know. I don't know what's out there. I'm open to kind of experiences and to see what happens, but I'm kind of not in one camp here, there, and anywhere. I'm not. Did I say atheist? I mean agnostic. So I think there's a difference between atheist and agnostic. Is one that says that they believe in nothing, and agnostic is more kind of, I don't know what I believe in, and I'm not sure. Maybe there is some higher power, but I'm not putting my eggs in one basket. It's kind of maybe life and experiences will unravel that. But right now, I'm comfortable just being like, you know what, I don't know. I'm not sure. So you were kind enough to take me and a few other people that we know were all friends that we knew to do a ritual on one of the mounds, which I think again is kind of very symbolic for many reasons.
Yeah, it's funny that you're explaining your beliefs or lack of, or whatever that realm is, because I don't care what I believe. I feel that this whole question of do you believe in XYZ and so on is irrelevant. It's much more important what you do and what you communicate with and how you communicate with it, and if you communicate at all. That's how I see it. So it's like the question of belief, right, is a very contemporary modern thing that has come out of a situation of Christian civil war in Europe, right? So the situation is we have first of all, you have the Catholic Church in the form that it materializes in late antiquity in Rome starts expanding. And of course, there is the question of what do you believe in when it is expanding, because it meets these different cultures that have various kinds of traditions that aren't Christian, and then it deconstructs them and replaces them. And in that context, there is the question: do you believe in God, or do you believe in these things that we call demons over here? And so that's one thing. And then you have a new situation in Europe in the 1500s with the Reformation, and all of a sudden it matters again what you believe in, and especially how you believe in it. And this is where we also have the introduction of the modern era, as we would call it. The 1500s begin the early modern period. The early modern period is a new period in European history because there are new realizations, scientific realizations that from the 1500s and onwards, the Europeans are realizing more and more about the world because they start traveling around and interacting with new cultures and finding new plants and looking at new rocks and tasting new ocean water or whatever they're doing. And all of this starts accumulating more and more knowledge in different ways. And this process speeds up. And that's what we then from the 1700s call the Enlightenment and all that stuff. That's not necessarily what it is, but that's what we like to call it. And so in this process, right, you have a situation where we thought the world looked in a certain way. We thought the world was composed of like 3 continents: Europe, Asia, Africa. And then all of a sudden we realized there are more continents out there, and we realized there are more people out there. And we also realized that where we thought the Garden of Eden was, that's not where it is. That's what they expected in the medieval period. You travel far enough east, you're going to get to the Garden of Eden. Right. So all of a sudden we realize that that's not what's happening when you travel far enough to the east. And when you travel far enough to the west, you eventually get to the east, and so on and so forth. So again, for some, that then comes down to maintaining the quote unquote old world order. Is like basically, and we know this with especially in terms of astronomy, right, with Copernicus and other astronomers, and what they were saying about the shape of the world and what the sky and the heavens and all of that stuff are, right? So there's a discord between quote unquote science. I don't want to just, say that it's science, but science, or what we think we believe about the world, or what we think we know about the world, reality, and then beliefs that have to do with religion. And this evolves further into, philosophers saying God is dead, philosophers saying religion is stupid, and all that stuff. And then so what it eventually comes down to in modern times, in our contemporary era, is that there is like this perceived difference between believing in something and knowing what the world is. And I think that is a false dichotomy. That's not how it works. Because there are plenty of, for lack of a better word, spiritual people out there who would probably call themselves atheist or agnostic. And then on the other hand, there are plenty of religious people out there whose religiosity is just about controlling other people. So, you know, it goes in many directions with all of this stuff. And for me, what it comes down to is having the it thing, and
the it factor.
The it factor, exactly. And that's something that, you know, if you have it, you can see it in other people as well. And it doesn't matter whatever denomination they and tag or nomenclature they throw on whatever their it is, you can see whether or not they have it. Boom.
There we go. I mean, I think when I was a kid, I was certainly like in my 16s, 17s, I was very pig-headed about things like this. And if someone said they believed in something, I would kind of maybe roll my eyes, particularly when it came to like a religious thing. I'd roll my eyes and kind of think maybe I knew better because I was probably more atheist back then, and kind of thought I knew everything. And then I guess as I grew older, I realized the belief is such a personal thing. And if somebody truly believes in something, like in their heart, they really believe that this thing is real, then you can't really question it. You can't ever really be like, no, it's not. Because to that person, if they believe it's real, then to them it's real. And it's a thing. Like, you can't take that away from somebody if they have that true belief within themselves or something. It's like, it doesn't really matter if it's real to everybody else. If it is to them, then it's real. And I guess that's kind of like my softening as I've got older, maybe getting a little bit wiser. I'm not sure. But certainly like softening as a human and kind of having that understanding of people around me rather than thinking, you know, there's a one size shoe that fits everything, when it's not. People are individuals and they're very much capable of having their own things and their own beliefs that are just for them. And who the fuck am I to say it's not real? If it makes you happy and you believe in it, then who am I to be like, no, that's not, you can't do that.
Yeah, I agree. In many ways, the only people that say that they believe something that I am very skeptical about are the ones who tie their belief up in stuff that they would classify as morals and ethics and such things. You know, people that are going to tell you that you go to hell if you don't do this, that, and so on, or you have to live in a certain way to be in accordance with whatever God they believe in. And that's not something that's just, you know, limited to the primary, you know, morality-based religions that we're familiar with, like Christianity and Islam. You get that in a lot of different traditions. You just go to India, you can see how that is very tied up in Hinduism these days too. It's you know, it's not so much a function of a particular belief system as it's a function of a certain social situation and societal situation. And that's,
I think that's a very different thing, where you then take your beliefs and push them outwardly onto others. As long as it's kind of between you and whatever you believe, then I think it's a personal thing.
Exactly. And you know, in the other situation where you're, you know, forcing your beliefs on others, you know, that's no different than political situations where you're forcing your political agenda on others, right? You know, many political ideas come with so-called traditional values, which is just a bunch of shit that people made up in the early 20th century. So yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about my spiritual experience that we had.
Yeah.
So you took us onto the mount to do a ritual. I don't know if you want to outline maybe what that is.
Yeah. So I was asked by our mutual friend Alex if I could lead a little ritual where we would give thanks to the place where we were at and the spirits and the ancestors there, because obviously the Bora Mounds are a very significant location historically, and to many of us spiritually as well. Historically, it is a ancient Viking site where you have these burial mounds that were made to honor significant individuals of some kind. Not sure if you want to call them kings or chieftains or whatever, magnates of some kind. They were important people, and they've been there in the ground for centuries until archaeologists showed up and dug them out again. And
I mean, there's no doubt that they were clearly very important people.
Absolutely.
Whoever they were.
Yeah. And as you can also see, if you go to the mounds, a lot of them are like collapsed in the center, and it's sort of like there's like a groove in the side of them as well. And that's because the archaeologists who dug out the contents of the mounds did not have much respect for them either. So, we many of us who go to Midgardsblot, and that's not just the ones who are present at the ritual that we did. It's a lot of people who are there. They feel that it's important to go and pay some respect to the mounds and to that place, and that's what Alex asked me to facilitate. So we gathered the people who were interested in joining us, and then we went up to one of the mounds, and we had a little ceremony where we shared a horn with the drink of the All-Father, which people are like, oh, that's got to be me. No, actually. And according to Grimnismal, he drinks wine.
I mean, it wasn't because we couldn't find mead at all.
No, that was not because not at all. And the awkward 10 minutes where we were trying to push the cork into the bottle with a knife was not because we couldn't find a corkscrew either.
No.
But yeah, the good Rune Janne Rasmussen, whom some of you hopefully know as the guy behind Nordic animism, he was the one who supplied both the wine that we shared and also some sacrificial beer. And then we got it going. We gave some gifts to the spirits of the place and of the land. And we spoke our true words and best intentions to the spirits around us, and we set some intention for connecting this ancient sacred site in Norway with us, those of us who were there, and then also the rest of the world. So yes.
Yeah, it was definitely a different experience for me. It was the first ritual I'd been part of, and it was nice seeing everybody in this very safe environment where you could say whatever you wanted. It took turns going around the circle, and each person could just say something, whether it was just as simple as saying thank you to the ancestors or something deeper. And it was a very kind of special moment of having that openness where you knew there was no judgment. You knew that everybody there was friends and in the same position, and you could just be honest and free. And I have to be honest with myself. The whole way around, I was terrified. I was nervous of what I was going to say. I mean, we spoke about at the beginning of the show. Obviously, I've had a lot going on. I'm in a very kind of emotional state at the minute. I kind of am in this position where I get the opportunity to kind of just say something. And obviously, we were around a lot of the people I cared about there. But Alyssa was there. She said something very beautiful before it was my turn, and then kind of playing from the festival itself, we had the beautiful voice of Katrine of Calandra playing on one of the stages that kind of came over as well. And it was my turn And I think I asked for forgiveness, kind of forgiveness, healing for everybody that's been involved in kind of the situation, the people that have looked after me, and thanks for that. And it was an emotion. It was emotional in the time. I knew I had to kind of hold back tears, and maybe my voice broke a few times. But once it had passed, I certainly felt kind of like a lifting of everything, and felt like I certainly feel like I left something up on that mound. Part of kind of everything that I've been through these last few months, a little bit of that, and a little bit of kind of like just the guilt and everything that's been holding over me was kind of just left there. And I'm not going to say that it completely fixed everything, and now I'm not upset about things, or I'm not feeling guilt. I'm not kind of emotional, which of course I am. But there was certainly like this thing that was just left there, and everything just got a little bit lighter. I have to say thanks to you, first of all, for doing the ritual, and thank you for everybody that was there. I don't know if it's because it was a spiritual thing, and I don't know if it's because of where we were. I don't know if it's just kind of this speaking in front of people. It could just be a psychosomatic thing of kind of this opportunity to talk in front of some strangers, some friends, and kind of get these things out. And how often do we speak openly and ask for forgiveness of things, or ask for healing, or just ask for anything? We don't really do that, I guess.
And that's
so yeah.
That's the power of ritual, right? The power of ritual is that in the moment of going through whichever ritual it is, you get to know yourself on a new level. And those are that's really one of the things that I think a lot of modern human beings are missing, because they don't do ritual. They and if they do rituals, it's usually the type of ritual where you go to a building, and then you sit down, and then you listen to somebody rant at you about some scripture for a bit, and then you go home again. And that's not really ritual. That's school. Like just religious school.
That's it. I was so surprised at how simplistic this was, because when you said even though we've done this podcast for so long, and when you said we're going to go up and do a ritual, I'm like, this motherfucker's going to be sacrificing some animal up there. There's going to be blood flying around. There's going to be. I was like, what the fuck am I getting myself into? I was a little bit apprehensive, and then when we got there, it's just like a bunch of friends hanging out. You said some words at the beginning, and then it's literally just this cleansing as you go around and just kind of just get things off your chest. I'm like, this isn't scary. Anybody can do this. Like, anybody can sit with a group of friends and just kind of get these things out. And I guess it's what people class as ritual. And unfortunately, I think ritual has probably got a bad kind of like a bad attachment in recent times, but kind of the certain like the satanic panic and all that kind of bullshit in the 80s, was it?
Yeah.
And it probably holds some attachments still from then.
Yeah, there's that popular use of the word, just like the word sect or cult and so on. Like if you say cult, then people are like, oh, that's got to be like people in black robes in a basement somewhere. And the word cult simply just.
Oh, that's what I was expecting. I thought you were gonna. I thought you were turning up in a hood, and I was gonna be like, oh.
But so it's like, in the terminology of science of religion, right? Ritual just means acts in which a one or more people they do something to communicate with gods or spirits or whatever you want to call them. If you want to get really technical with religious scholars, you can call them what is it? Non-empirical entities, or something like that. Like, but ritual is simply just a communicative mode for human beings, that where the communication is not necessarily between two individuals, but between perceived non-human entities of some kind, right? And in the same way, the word cult in the science of religion simply just means some kind of ritual practice, some religious practice. And yeah, I know that you were expecting some weird shit with like black robes and animal sacrifices and bonfires and I don't know what, but so there
I
are
thought
many.
maybe I was getting sacrificed.
Well, we were, thinking about it, but then we were like, nah, you need him for the podcast. No, so the stuff that I do take many different kinds of form, and I'm not going to speak publicly and reveal much about what goes on in private settings with me. But these types of rituals are outward projecting, right? What my friend Alex asked me to do was to gather the people that were significant for being there, and that was a lot of people that I haven't interacted with in these under these circumstances before. And there were some whom I've interacted with under these circumstances before too. And it was a lot of people who most of them didn't know each other that well. I had no idea how many of the so-called quote unquote believers were there. Did we have skeptics? And no, we had one at least, Bob, and so on and so forth. And so my purpose as the person who leads the ritual is to make sure that everybody can come together and feel comfortable and express themselves in the way that they feel is most meaningful to them. And the consensus that I created to begin with, if you remember, I asked everybody to sit down and feel the earth. I asked everybody to stand up and feel the air and the breeze. And
I remember seeing Teacher Mateus come out when Alex was talking. That's what I remember.
Yeah, of course.
I saw a glimpse of what you must be like in the lecture room.
Oh, you have no idea. No. So you also need to rein people in a little bit and make sure that they start. It has nothing to do with like, oh, now you must fall in line and be serious about this. This is everything to do with if they're going to have an experience of what it means to do ritual, they also need to start tuning in, right? And
because it's easy, it's especially when you're there, and I guess if it's your first time as well, if you're there with a friend or someone you really care about, you kind of you have this natural thing of wanting to talk and share it, but then you're also taking yourself out and rubbing yourself in your own experience because you're pulling yourself out of kind of your own mindset to talk. So you do need that Mateus figure to be like, shut the fuck up and just listen.
You need to start with that. That doesn't mean that you can't start blabbering later on. And there was one person in that circle who was like, y'all are so quiet. And I know exactly why they said that. They're used to, these kinds of rituals being a lot more rowdy, a lot more communicative, also a lot drunker. There are many ways that these rituals can play out. But the main purpose is to create a communal setting for all the humans involved and all the spirits involved, and so that everybody can come together and communicate with each other in the language that is most appropriate to the people there. And so that can also take the form of people speaking in their own language. I don't remember if I think I kept it in English all the way through, but quite often,
as you did.
Yeah, but quite often those kinds of rituals, I can go through Danish and Old Norse and English and so on, because that really depends on how and why I'm trying to express something. So and I know that that's the case for others as well. And this is, of course, that has something to do with how we have been brought up and how we've learned to speak to these outside entities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but the main purpose is that everybody is there to feel some connectedness of whatever kind it is for them, mm-hmm. and to feel comfortable in that connectedness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I felt both. It was like I said, it was especially. I think the festival as a whole had a very healing way on me, because you just got to meet tons of people that I felt like I already knew through the podcast, and whether that was guests we'd had on or people that listen, you just got to meet all these new people, meet new friends and hang out, and it was all very much was a healing thing. That festival, I like I say, it's the first time I've been, but it has such an endearing quality to it of just overall community that everybody just seems to be there for the same reason and gets on. There's no trouble. There's nothing. It's just a really nice place to be, and I would recommend it for anybody to go and experience, because it is an experience. It's not just, you're not just going to a festival to watch music. The whole festival itself is just an experience.
Exactly, and let's keep in mind that Midgardsblot also commences with a ritual, their interpretation of what a sacrificial ritual to the Nordic gods might have looked like in the Viking Age, and they do that really well. And we sat there commenting on it. And
we did.
Yeah,
we were like sports commentators on the
yeah. Recording the whole thing. I hope that actually turned out well, because that I think it would be kind of fun to watch.
It was a lot of fun.
But see, this is an important little detail too, because that makes Midgardsblot something different from other festivals, because you have a ritual that begins the whole thing. And this is also a ritual that you can choose to participate in or choose not to. And if you choose to participate in it, then it is actually, quite graphic, in the sense that you're like smearing sacrificial, semi-fake blood all over yourselves and statues and I don't know what.
Hey, that's fucking real blood. I'll hear nothing about
fucking
it.
Real blood. It's totally real.
Done. Don't do that. We want to get back next year.
Hey, nobody told us we couldn't guess whether or not it's real or not real blood. I mean, I'm guessing. I haven't tasted it. But obviously, if you know anything about blood used for sacrifice, then no, I'm not going to go into details about it. But anyway, the point is that the festival begins with this, and this sets a tone for a lot of the people who are there. And I know for a fact that a lot of people there, they have a spiritual connection to being there, right? So it's more than just a festival. It is some kind of religious ritual, right? To be there in the first place. And that kind of in many ways mirrors exactly what some of these large festivals were, back in the pagan days, where people would come from all over a region, let's say from all over the Swedish area, and then they would go to the temple at Uppsala, and there would be all these rituals there. But there would also be a bunch of other things going on outside of the temple and, in the general area around it, and so on. And people would be connecting to the gods and spirits they believe in their own ways, as well as taking part in the official rituals. That's exactly what this is, right? So that makes it a very significant event for many people. And also keep in mind, we're talking about people who come from all over the world, people who come from us.
That fucking surprised me, like, because this is a festival in Norway. And I just assumed that, like, the ratio would be maybe like 70% Norwegian and 30% like other, like people who've come in. And they did not feel like that at all. It seemed like maybe like the Norwegians were much the
minority.
Blank. A minority. Yes. Yeah. Like, yeah. And it was just so many people who were from South America, from fucking Australia, from England, from America, like all over.
India,
and in such high quantities.
Yeah. And that's really important to also consider, because what does that mean then? If you look at it from the lens of the science of religion, then it's a pilgrimage. Then the whole journey there is a religious component to it as well. You could go back home and you could say, I went there. I was part of that ritual. I had these experiences. And, if you are the kind of person who's like, I believe in the Nordic gods or something like that, then you can say, I connected with the Nordic gods in Norway at this ritual, right?
And that's the place you're going to do it.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of people that would be a very significant experience for them to do. So yeah, in that sense, this is a lot more than just a music festival, right? And it doesn't matter if the people who created the festival believe in the Nordic gods themselves, or do rituals or whatever. What matters is the significance that event has to the audience that go there.
It does, absolutely. Let's wrap this one up, because I have a date with Bob and we are going to go get some beer.
Well, now I'm sad.
Yeah, no, me and Bob are going to go get a drink. I also want to just say thank you to everybody that was there who listens to the podcast, and whether it was that you said to Vicky, one of the organizers, that you were literally there because you heard of Midgardsblot on our podcast, which is insane to me to think we have that influence on people and we bring new things to people's lives, or that you took the time to come up to me or Matthias and say, how much you appreciate the podcast, how much I guess some people, it's very much like we have an influence on their lives. Like they listen to us every day when they're at work, or kind of, or we've helped them through tough times, which one gentleman said to me, and which is very surreal for me to hear. And whilst in that moment, I have to admit, I do feel very uncomfortable, because it's a new feeling for me to kind of have somebody kind of pick me out and be like, are you Dan from the podcast? And I do kind of, maybe the introvert in me takes over, and I'm just a little bit like, oh, this is weird. But I am very much thankful for it. I'm very grateful that you take the time to listen to us and come and show your appreciation just by saying thank you. It means a fucking great deal. You wouldn't believe how much it means to have somebody kind of come and say thank you for sitting and talking on this podcast for an hour and a half every week. It's an odd feeling.
I agree. And I also want to say thank you to everybody who came up and said hi. And I also want to thank all of those who might have decided not to do it because they were I don't know, shy or something like that. You guys also matter. I'm sure that there are people there who listen to the podcast who didn't get to come up and say hello to me or you or both of us. And yeah, in the same way, I want to say thank you to all of those people that because I was so damn busy that I just got to say hey, and then ran off because I needed to help you find a chair at the Guildhall or
yeah, absolutely,
or something out with food tickets or I don't know what, man.
We were very busy. I think I saw Bob yesterday and his girlfriend, and they said that for Nabala, I was sat talking with them, and there was a couple next to them in Norwegian who, for some reason, had kind of clocked my voice because, I have a very obvious voice. And they were talking Norwegian between themselves saying, I think that's the guy from the podcast. We should go and say hi, but he looked really busy. And like that kind of thing is so surreal to me. But next time, just interrupt me and come say hi. I won't be mad. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to. I will always appreciate it. It means the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So yeah, if you enjoy the show, please leave us a 5-star rating, positive review wherever you get your podcasts. Now we've met in person, we've had a long discussion, and we're going to start doing a lot more. We've got some big things in the works. We've got some educational things that you're going to start putting out on Patreon exclusive. So if you can, please jump over to Patreon. It's literally Patreon/Nordic Mythology podcast, and get on early. We're going to start really pushing that, and you're going to start, like I say, creating some content literally just for Patreon. It's going to be, we've got big plans. It's safe to say we're taking this to the next level.
Yeah, we totally are. And yeah, we don't hate each other after having met.
That is when we don't. We actually like each other, which is nice.
That is nice.
So, yeah, please check out the YouTube page. We're going to be putting a bunch of interviews on there. And whilst you can also get the audio, it's always fun to see us and you see the interaction and the guests that we're sat down with. So take a minute to pop over onto there again. YouTube, type in Nordic Mythology Podcast, you're going to find it. Hit subscribe, hit the little bell thing that alerts you every time we put a new video out. We really appreciate it. And yeah, it's a good, fun one back. And next time we'll have a guest with us, I'm sure, and we'll deep dive into a new topic.
Yes, we will.